Welcome to the nap, where we cover the question period. The question period where no answers are provided, which is why we call it the nap. But before we get to the nap, the question period, even though it is scheduled 45 minutes from now, they hardly ever stick to their schedule. They're usually running late. Before we get to that, we usually cover all the half-literary by the far-left lunatics who've been running rampant across Canada, north to south, east to west, causing misery, death, everywhere they go. And yet, Canadians re-elected these half-wits to cause more. So before we get to the question period, we'd like to cover a lot of these events, especially those related to the activities and stuff we talk about in Parliament at that time. First things, let's look at yesterday's question. Gary, an executive, was just hammered yesterday over and over again. He was caught on tape talking to his tenant. His tenant was concerned about the gun laws that he was bringing in. And Gary told him, don't worry, we need to do this for protect votes, even though we know it's not actually going to reduce crime. And if, you're not going to be recognized for a gun, we will just, I'll pay you the difference. And if there's an event that happens because, you didn't process this gun properly, don't worry, I'll bail you out. Yeah. That was Gary. Right there, caught on tape. So, they're basically repeating what he said on tape. He said it's a lie, to the point where Gary called out Larry to step outside. Not because he wanted to discuss. Gary doesn't like to be in that kind of shape. But basically, so that he could sue him. But Larry, is an ex-prosecutor, very much involved in the law before he came to politics. So, it's only, it's not surprising that I don't think Gary is long for the cabinet at this rate, from those justice issues. Even though he's quite adamant in grabbing all the guns from the gun safes to make sure that, the criminals can get inside the gun safes to get those guns, apparently, from those legal gun owners. In spite of that, he couldn't even tell the difference between an RPAL and a PAL. So he still wants to do the gun grab. So that was yesterday. They wasted so many questions. There's so many other things happening in Parliament that they could have been covering this. Even mentioning, perhaps, the biggest story that has unfolded in Canada since over the weekend, over the last 3 days, and especially over the last 24 hours. And I speak, of course, of the ostrich farm. Now, about an hour before our stream started, some very good news. Very good news came in. It looks like a stay for the cull has occurred. So let's go back and check on what we know from the last 24 hours. While I set this up. Now, 2 days ago, Katie on the farm had been pleading. It's heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking.
Now, a letter from the CFIA that, as of this morning, asks us to maintain control of these birds. I'm not going to talk about the letter now, okay? What I'm asking you
guys are murderers. How many animals are you going to kill before you stop? No, they won't. Because you guys are operating from the World Health Organization and the United Nations. This is absolutely insane. This is tyranny. This is overreach. This is tyrannical behavior on families and terrorism. This is terrorism on families.
Okay. And right now, a letter from the CFIA that, as of this morning, asks us to maintain control of these birds.
So, you see what's happening here. Now, we warned that this would happen. We warned that this was happening. As soon as the liberals signed on to World Health Organization rules to ensure that Canada would follow these same rules. Well, all these globalist efforts are for one thing and one thing only, and eventually is to steal and take all the property from every single person in each of the countries where they are organized and actively engaged right now, Australia, UK, Canada, and any other place the West can get their greedy little fingers in. But just look at the policies of those three countries, and you will see they're all well connected. They're all doing the same things. They're all inundating their countries with uncontrolled mass immigration, all having their societies collapsing, all printing more money than they can afford to spend, all collapsing their economies at the same time. What is going on? You can't tell me it's not a plan. Now, if you look at the WHO, they changed the rules on how animal husbandry can be done. It can only be done one way now. If you have a crop or a flock or a herd that has some kind of disease, the government steps in and does complete scorched earth, complete annihilation, and you're pretty well on the hook to pick up the pieces on your own, no matter how much money you invested in there. And you are not allowed to do any other course of action. Now, in this case here, for these birds, they brought them back to health. What happened was a wild flock of geese, according to the interviews that I've seen, and it makes complete sense, came and stayed over last winter. They probably had a bug, and they passed it on to their flock. Because you got to remember, the ostriches are static. They're not meat. They are not for human consumption. Neither are their eggs. Their eggs are harvested so that they can collect immunity from the eggs and then work from there. So, and of course, in past visits to their farm, they have tried to abscond with what they've been collecting from the eggs, which has nothing to do with culling the herd. So you know exactly what they're after. They're after those antibodies because that will destroy Big Pharma because Big Pharma is in league with Big Agri, and Big Agri can't take over the land until it's free and available. And it's not free and available right now because the people are still farming it and are still able to eke out a living, but not if the CFIA can just come in and arbitrarily say, "Oh, we think you have a bug. We're going to destroy you all, destroy your entire crop, complete annihilation." That is the law now. It's just that this has caught a lot of attention. Canadians need to wake up. But of course, the mainstream media is not covering it this way. The mainstream media is still placating the population with the lie that the H1N1 or flu virus, whatever the flock got, can infect other poultry farms in the area, which is ridiculous because they don't fly, right? So they're not going to migrate somewhere and spread the disease around. It goes, oh yeah, but what about wildlife coming through? Well, guess what? That's how the flock got the disease in the first place. And how do they treat them? They put their own version of quinine or hydrochloroquine in all the ponds that they could find, all the water, all the drinking water for all the birds, and they naturally brought them back to health. Naturally brought them back to health. In fact, they said from their own observations that the flock has never been happier, never been full of energy since they've been doing this water treatment. So there is a way of animal husbandry. And what did they do in the past before they did mass culling? It's natural immunity, something that we were taught in biology. I don't know why there's an anti-science movement against natural immunity, which we know has been the way for all biological things to survive on this planet. So after that, there was quite an online campaign. A lot of people were calling, a lot of people were texting, a lot of people were sending emails. I don't know if anybody sent any actual snail mail, but there was constant hammering. If you went anywhere on any of the platforms, you saw politicians posting stuff about what they wanted to talk about, and people were saying, "What about the ostriches? Why aren't you talking about the ostriches? Why is nobody saying anything about the ostriches?" No, not engaging in what they're posting about, only about the ostriches. Constant wave of this information. But we didn't know if that was going to help at all, because each day led to another stay. And then I saw this morning. Another twist with Universal Ostrich Farm. An indigenous group that claims the farm is on their ancestral territory has given paperwork to the farm that they just gave the police to tell CFIA that they need to stop the cull as it is on ancestral land. This is all happening in the final hours. Once I saw that, I was 99% sure. Having played that trump card right there, I knew immediately far left would start eating itself. Oh, you see them all the time now. Every time they go to do a news conference anywhere to talk anywhere about anything, unless it's, at a specific podium, like in the parliament or they're always like, first I'd like to mention that I am on land that was once walked on by whatever, right? And so it is so easy if you just point out their fallacies and let them intertwine themselves. But I don't know. I don't know what gave them the last day, right? Because then there was a post by View Afraid about an hour ago. I have just been informed that the interim stay to protect the ostriches has been granted. I don't know who granted it. I don't know how it happened. I'll have to look into it after the program. I just saw the news and I thank my higher power, praying hard for this, and it's happened. It's great news. But now I would like you to listen to some comments here by Danielle Smith when she was asked
Hi, Mickey here
about
with
these ostriches.
Politico. This question is for Smith and Ford. I was speaking with John Katsimatidis regarding the ostrich situation in BC. He had a meeting yesterday with RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz on this matter. He essentially wants the PM to intervene in the case, and he said that he's spoken to both of you on this issue as well. Will you be applying pressure to the PM on this? And do either of you have any issues or any concerns about the federal government's treatment of farmers, particularly in this case?
Well, I have asked my agriculture minister to look into it to see if we had a similar situation in Alberta, what would we be able to do differently? And one of the things that I think is worth looking at is when avian flu went through that herd, it did kill 20% of them, but it didn't kill 80% of them. So maybe there is something to learn from whether there's an immunity or some kind of vaccine that could be developed as a...
There you go. If some kind of vaccine could be developed. Yeah. Why does it always come back to that? Are you involved with Big Pharma there, Danielle? Because you seem to be going after Dr. Makis a lot as well and refusing, took Dr. Makis's license away to practice medicine. He's had a lot of success in various treatments in curing cancer, but not the way the board wants him to treat it, right? He's not using big pharma treatments. He's using other alternative treatments, including ivermectin, of which Danielle Smith here wants to ban in Alberta. Can you get ivermectin from anyone else other than a veterinarian in Alberta? I'm not sure. But this whole thing about, I don't know if there's, natural immunity. What? This narrative that natural immunity cannot be obtained naturally is insane, that it always has to be provided by a vaccine. It doesn't always have to be a vaccine. I explained to you earlier how the treatments of that farm brought their flock back to health. Obviously, those with a weakened immune system are going to die. That is a natural thing, immunity. Not everyone is going to survive. But those that do gain an immunity. And for some reason, that is no longer the primary thing. And it's just, it's a little wishy-washy. You could tell right away, well, they could fall on either side because, got to make sure those donors, allegedly, can be there for the next election.
result of having that flock survive. I think that maybe we have to think about different ways to do animal husbandry and animal safety.
Like, no, we don't need to think of different ways. Those ways have been available for thousands of years, centuries, decades, right? Before big pharma came along and big agriculture and started dictating how farmers needed to do certain things, they started to lose touch with what worked naturally. Now people are trying to get back into that because they know that why would you constantly use vaccines, introducing something else into the body when the body already has the ability to fight off diseases on their own for any biological entity? And that's what needs to be boosted. You can boost that immunity through the gut. We know this. Well, there's no helping these people. Well, at least the herd has been saved. Let's move on to the next story. Ah, yes. Now, we barely got to touch this yesterday. The the government increased their amount of consultants by 37%. This current iteration of the Liberal government since 2015. So as soon as Mark Carney became prime minister, boom, the spending started, right? And now you have a department with 6,168 employees, with fully staffed, but still, they still needed to go and hire private consultants to help them manage, fundamentally rethink of U.S. relations. Now, you've seen Carney on a stage, you've seen all these far left politicians that we have running Canada, talking constantly about the US like it's a pariah, like it's something that we need to hate, that we need to be afraid of, that we need to step back, that we need to isolate from, that they're the bad man, they're the boogeyman. This is the constant natural hatred that people like this need to foster in others so that you cannot think about all the crimes that they are committing. Like, why do we need to hire more consultants to help you think? Bloody hell. You were voted in because apparently you're able to think. And of course, there's no talking to a liberal. You cannot make sense with a liberal because they will not give you an answer. They will not engage with you. As soon as you tie them into a corner in their logic, they just get frustrated and call you a racist and then walk away. Or they get violent. Well, have you been seeing the violence in Italy? Oh, yeah. Yeah, they wouldn't recognize the Palestinian state. And, well, guess what? You let a bunch of them into your country and they've been running rampant, causing riots. It's kind of like watching BLM riots. It's like their own George Floyd moment, except it's all these peace-loving terrorists, I guess. Now, wanted to start getting into this yesterday. We ran out of time. I always have a lineup of information. Always something about the COVIDity stupidity. Let's listen to John Carpe.
According to Statistics Canada, more Canadian children are dying and more Canadians under the age of 45 are dying after lockdowns and vaccine mandates were imposed on Canadians. According to statistics in 2022 and 2023 was 15% higher than during the years before lockdowns. These are not COVID deaths. According to Statistics Canada, after lockdowns were imposed, drug overdose deaths rose by 55%, and they have stayed at that new high level after lockdowns were imposed. According to Stats Canada, 18% increase in alcohol-induced deaths. And according to Statistics Canada, 15% of younger Canadians under the age of 45, 15% are dying of unknown cause. So in 2022, 3 years ago, 15% of Canadians who died, cause of death is listed as unknown. According to Statistics Canada, the number of Canadians dying of COVID actually increased after the vast majority of Canadians got injected with COVID vaccine and booster shots. Pre-vaccine, COVID deaths were 16,000, and then in 2022, after vaccines have been taken by most Canadians, especially elderly Canadians, the death rate jumped to 20,000 people dying.
From 16 to 20,000. 16 to 20,000. An increase in deaths. 16, number 16, to 20,000. 20, and then 3 more zeros. We warned you and we were shut down. We warned you and we were censored. We warned you. We were fired. We warned you and you turned us into second-class citizens and you called us misogynists and racists and the people who protested in Ottawa, the freedom protest, that protested this kind of tyranny that we knew would lead to this amount of death. Well, they're still being dragged through the courts. In fact, Chris Barber's truck, they want to crush that thing. Now his trucking company, they got 2 trucks. His son drives the other truck. He got cut off by I don't know what happened there, but his son survived. But the other rig needs work, so they're down to 1 truck. The 1 truck that the Ford government has a vendetta to destroy because they feel that it is a symbol of freedom of people who try to remind you of this death right here. Now you got to remember that Canada has spent hundreds of billions of dollars giving it over to Big Pharma, and they just bought another big batch of these vaccines. But you go ahead and get your boosters, folks. Let's keep listening to John Carpe.
Of COVID makes you wonder how effective are these vaccines when the COVID death numbers go up after everybody's been vaccinated. Statistics Canada data tells us that lockdowns killed many Canadians, that the vaccine was not as effective as claimed, and that the vaccine may have been harmful to many. All of this is laid out in a new Justice Centre report titled Post-COVID Canada, The Rise in Unexpected Death. Some people will be very upset with this report because it undermines the government narrative and the media narrative about COVID, about lockdowns, and about the vaccine path.
Let's be clear. The COVID narrative that the media put forward was government narrative because the media in Canada is the government. They are paid for by the government. Their employees get a good chunk of their salary because of these subsidies. And you only get those subsidies if you're the recognized media in Canada. And as part of the recognized media, then of course you're not going to be gone after when they introduce Bill C9 under hate legislation because the only people that can do hate are unapproved independent media, right? So the unapproved independent media did not repeat these government lies. They tried to warn you that of what was going on. And of course, all we had to do was bide our time. We could see the people drop like flies from taking it. Let's continue and see how these lies are being exposed.
Passports. But it's not the Justice Centre coming out with this data about rising deaths in Canada after lockdowns and vaccine passports. It's Statistics Canada, and government health officials should take note. They should be interested. They should be looking at this data, and they should be trying to answer the difficult questions that it raises. I'm John Carpe. Thanks for listening.
We need justice. We need people to be accountable. We need all those in positions of authority who abuse their positions to coerce people into this injection, lest they become unemployed, lest they become second-class citizens. Remember, those of us who did not take this as a serving veteran, I could not get on a plane or a train or a ferry or cross the border and leave the country as a serving veteran because I was too dangerous being uninjected with the experimental messenger RNA rebranded as a COVID-19 vaccine. That's right. Apparently, the vaccine that everyone else took, obviously from the statistics, did not protect them. That means everybody needed to take it to protect everybody. Now you are all paying the price, and only the die-hard, elbows-up crowd continue to hang on to the illusion that the vaccine was real while they line up to take their boosters. Let's move on to the next story here. We go with Juno News. Immigration officials silent on online scams selling fake language scores. Well, of course, when you inundate Canada with uncontrolled mass immigration, because these people are not vetted, and you allow criminal elements to set up shop in your country in various forms, and you allow this on purpose to destroy society, to allow it to crumble so you can bring in more draconian rules. We've seen this scenario play out before, and they're doing it right in front of us now. That's what happens. You get all these scammers in there. And of course, the police aren't going to do anything about these scams, right? It's not in their political marching orders to do this. That's right, Canada. Your police have been completely politicized. They no longer look after the taxpayer. They only look after the political masters. If we get to it, there will be an example of this later. I've been putting this off for a couple of days. As you know, Christy Freeland. Krista Freeland? Either way, she's off to the Ukraine. Yes. Oh, she's going to resign her seat as an envoy. Shouldn't be holding those two positions, by the way. That's like double dipping. Huh, liberals don't care about the rules or ethics. No, not at all. Let's give this a listen.
Hello, Canada. Big news. I've resigned from cabinet because, well, I totally rocked it as finance minister, right? Turned that $1.2 trillion debt into $12 trillion. Wait, no, $1.2 quadrillion. Numbers are tricky. Anyway, Prime Minister Mark Carney, smart guy, loves Ukraine, gave me this perfect new gig, head of disappearing money for Canada's Ukraine Reconstruction Fund. It's like poof, cash out of Canada into freedom. I mean, rebuilding schools, roads, or yachts. Who knows, but it'll be sustainable. Who's excited?
Christia, you're such an icon. How will your empowering story inspire young women in Ukraine?
Aw, thanks. See, I'm a woman, so that's like bonus points. I'll send $5 billion, no, $50 billion to empower them. It'll grow like my deficits did. Magic.
Fabulous. And does this role highlight Canada's compassionate global leadership?
Yes. Compassion means spending other people's money. Carney says I'm uniquely positioned, probably because I made so much vanish here first. $10 trillion to Kiev minus coffee runs, priorities.
Hold on, this is a farce. Christia, you resigned because you couldn't balance a checkbook if it came with training wheels. Debt exploded on your watch. Inflation hit families like a hockey puck to the face. And now Carney's shipping you off to Ukraine as special.
Well, I couldn't even shut that off. All right, let's move on to the next story. Before we do that, I just need to check something. We're still here. We're still there. Good. We're just making sure that we're actually broadcasting. All indications said yes. The next story. Right. So a couple of days ago, Michael Cooper, investigation launched. Now, if you've watched my prior shows, you know that I put up a few of Moose on the Loose. He's got this massive, massive layout. And every time I look at this, look at this thing. He updates this all the time. Anybody out there, if you're in a conversation with one of your friends and they think Carney's so good, give them a link to this site. Just give them a link to this entire page that lists every single thing that Carney and his friends are involved in and how they are ripping off Canadians by using the levers of power to continue to enrich themselves. All indications when you look at their spending says, yes, this is exactly what is happening. Every indication, increased budget, increased spending on consultants, and hiring of organizations to do things the government can't, only to find out that they can't do it and the government has to take it over themselves, like a vaccine injury support program, for example, perhaps, right? So, what investigation is launched? Well, the Ethics Committee will review ethics laws to close loopholes Carney is taking advantage of, including fake screens, blinds, trusts, and his use of tax havens. Now, we know that his screener was asked last week in Parliament, well, could you explain to me how the screen works? And he goes, well, yeah, we have all this stuff and he owns these shares and he will not see the profits till the future. Yeah, so he's not seeing the profits now because he doesn't have access to, but he knows he has those shares. So in the future, he knows that whatever he does now, he'll see in the future. And the screener's like, yeah, but that's not how it works. That's only your perception. Well, yeah, because that's reality, right? That's the same thing that the liberals were doing right yesterday in question period, where you have Gary on tape, on bloody tape, saying what he's saying, but yet he didn't say it. He didn't say it off tape, right? Later on, he didn't say that. These far lefties are a breed apart. Their method of binary thinking and their ability to just engage in cognitive dissonance by removing a certain aspect of reality from the brain is insane in the membrane. Notice of motion that the committee report the following recommendations to the House at the first opportunity. That the Conflict of Interest Act, including the conflict of interest rules, disclosure mechanisms, and compliance measures set out in it, be reviewed. That the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy, and Ethics be designated to undertake the review. And that it be an instruction to the committee to consider as part of its review whether the act should be amended or expanded with a view to enhance transparency, preventing conflicts of interest, avoiding potential or apparent conflicts of interest, regulating public office holders' ownership of assets and tax havens, limiting the availability of blind trust as a compliance measure, indeed, extending the Act's provisions to political party leaders and leadership candidates, and increasing penalties for non-compliance. There we go. That's the big one right there. There doesn't seem to be any real penalties for anything when it comes to politicians, because they can pretty well say and do anything they want, violate all the rules, all the ethics, break the laws, and they hardly ever get a fine or a notice or anything. In fact, in 2019, the Trudeau government removed the press's need to stay truthful, right? Because prior to that, if the press published lies, they could be held liable, and the people that did it would go to jail. But in 2019, the Trudeau Liberal government removed that rule, so that rule doesn't exist anymore, right? So the newspapers can lie, just like politicians can lie, and never be held to account currently under the existing acts that the Liberals have done. So everything that the Liberals have done has turned to, well, Sierra Hotel India Tango. You can spell it out yourself. At the conclusion of the review, the committee reported its findings and recommendations to the House. And in the time between when these recommendations are reported to the House and the House dispenses with them, begin hearing witness testimony on the subject matter referenced in the recommendation, and that the parties be directed to provide the names of their proposed witnesses to the clerk of the committee within 2 weeks of the adoption of this motion. So that'll be interesting. Where are they going to read the witnesses? Well, as we know, there are a lot of other channels out there that cover these. The other sites, watching the committees, and what these people are also doing, folks, got to remember, instead of just going to Parleview or CPAC and rewatching the old stuff, they're taking the time to go through the committees and usually to cut out a lot of the slow BS that the committees are suffering through, because usually the people that are far left affiliated, that would be the Liberals, the Bloc Québécois, the NDP, and a Green Party member if they actually make it on the committee. But anyways, they usually always slow down committee functions because A, they don't know what the hell they're doing, or B, they do know what they're doing on purpose to slow things down, like constantly putting in absurd points of order that are not points of order. This is what your government, currently elected, is doing to you, Canada. Abusing the levers of power simply to enrich themselves. And speaking of that, Auditor General has been brought in for some questionings, and she's been saying some rather disturbing things about how the Liberals under Mark Carney have been operating.
We reviewed, organizations did not have documentation showing that they had confirmed the security clearances of the individuals performing the work. We also found that organizations often did not monitor the work performed by contract workers. Organizations did not have documentation showing what work had been performed, who had performed it, or whether these individuals had the required experience and qualifications to carry out the work.
Shout out to Canadian Capital Clips. You can see him at the bottom of the screen there. This is his video. What she's describing there has been the normal standard operating procedure, the SOP of the Liberal government since they have come into power in 2015, is to abscond, not answer, abuse the system to enrich themselves and their friends, and never be held accountable. So as you can see from the auditor, she's explaining all these rule breakings that they are doing. They knew they were doing at the time was breaking the rules. They did it anyway. And then the auditor comes in. They only check a fraction of what's going on. And then they lay out a bunch of things that are supposed to be done. 3 years later, the agency that was set up to do it gets shut down. The actual items that they were supposed to repair is now left up to the departments on their own to do. The very departments that were breaking the rules in the first place without any oversight, until an auditor comes along and says, yeah, they're still doing the same stuff. No accountability. A fish rots from the head down, and we have a very rotten fish head in Ottawa. Well, here's a little reminder from Jasmine Lane. I thought this would be a good perk up for everyone. Just listen to what she has to say. Shall we play? Let us play.
It never ceases to amaze me just how obsessed liberals in Canada are with Donald Trump. These people will accuse everybody who disagrees with them for oftentimes incredibly valid reasons as just being this insane Trump supporter person, as though one, that's even a bad thing, he's a democratically elected president, or two, that even has anything to do with literally anything happening in our country, which it doesn't. And the real irony there is that they and only they are the people who are obsessed with Donald Trump. That guy is rent-free in every conversation, every insult, every thought in their brain. It is deranged. Canada is currently sinking in our own disasters caused by the Liberal government, crushing housing prices, record debt, crime surges, our GDP lagging behind, or perhaps our healthcare nightmares, skyrocketing living costs, unemployment rates, when you're so busy just projecting all of these failures onto Donald Trump. But I'm a traitor because I read and I know that Donald Trump is not the problem. Even Mark Carney admitted that in the election. He said, these problems have existed long before Donald Trump, but yeah, Donald Trump. This is so much deeper than just hypocrisy. It is full-blown delusion. So perhaps you could spend less time chanting about how much you hate America and more time demanding that your actual government shows up. It never...
Yep. They cannot see what the misery and the death that the Liberals have caused in Canada and continue to cause every day on a regular basis with their policies. Every single day that the Liberals are in power, pushing their lies that everything is fine, that harm reduction saves lives when we know that's killed over 50,000, when their migration system is humanitarian, even though that it has inundated our social system to the point where over these 76,000 people have died waiting for health care because they can't get an appointment because there's too many people. Or how about the 50,000 plus people that have just decided to off themselves using the medical assistance in dying because they couldn't wait for healthcare, because apparently it's easier to get rid of useless eaters than to be compassionate enough to take care of your own citizens instead of being so adamantly busy to replace your population through mass uncontrolled immigration while you destroy your economy and everything about in your society so you can bring in more draconian laws. Right? So that brings us to Bill C9. And here, Northern Perspective was doing a video very next day after I mentioned it. And everyone is catching on. They're not actually saying it. I think I'm still the only one saying it about warrantless arrest. You will be arrested without a warrant for hurty words. And then they can throw you in jail for life. Not just 14 years, not just 10 years, not just 5, whatever they decide, right? We know. We know exactly this is going to happen.
One of the things that jumps out at me right away is the first line in this, which essentially says that the Attorney General is no longer needed to actually adjudicate whether something is to be prosecuted for hate crime propaganda. This is an issue because that's supposed to be a safeguard. Now, technically, the Attorney General of Canada is Sean Fraser. But
for now,
it makes you wonder why they want to do this. But we'll come back to that because all of this kind of fits together like a puzzle. So the first thing that we need to take a look at is Criminal Code, Part 2, Paragraph A of the definition of offense, etc., is amended by adding the following after subparagraph, etc. Section 42.3.3, intimidation, building used for religious worship, etc. And then we go down to willful promotion of hatred, terrorism, and hate symbols. This is something they want to add. Everyone commits an offense who willfully promotes hatred against any identifiable group by displaying in any public place a symbol that is principally used by or principally associated with a listed entity as defined in subsection 83.01.
Right. So, as we get more into this hate symbology kind of thing, right? All this is doing now, all that has happened in Canada. If this bill passes, it is the complete politicization of our justice system because they will be able to use this act to put anyone, anytime in prison for anything they design to be hate. Why do I say that? Well, I've got the right story lined up here. Nope. Well, I guess we could show this one after the Muppets showing up there in the UK. In the UK, where they've arrest 12,000 people a year and throw them in jail for saying hurty words online. Yeah, that's it. That's all. So you get Muppets like this showing up at somebody's house to take the phone from a 3-year-old or a teenager or whatever because, oh my goodness, they might have looked at something inappropriate. I'm serious. This is what Carney wants for Canada. But it's worse. It's bloody worse. Is this the one I wanted? Ah, yes, right here. Noise fines issued in the anti-brain mob, which the Palestinian protesters, in 2023 and 2024 in Canada's capital were cancelled upon recognition of the fake Palestinian state. Do you realize what happened there? So our prime minister, without a mandate, decides arbitrarily, like a dictator, to recognize a terrorist state to give it statehood. There's no two ways around it. It's a terrorist state, full of terrorists who support terrorists, who re-elect terrorists, who breed terrorists, who launch things at other people who don't want them as neighbors because they're always launching and rape people, and then still holding hostages currently to this day. Our prime minister recognized them. And of course, now the lickspittle courts of judges, all appointed by their political masters, are following their political masters' direction. And oh, well, that was a good cause that they protested. So we'll just drop all the charges. Right. So why didn't the courts drop all the charges against a freedom convoy as soon as the use of the Emergencies Act was ruled illegal by the courts? Hmm? Justice for thee, but not for me? This is the totalitarian, authoritarian shithole Canada is slowly crawling into. We are about 1 minute away from question period, so we will see if they are actually starting. Oh, did I hit the right one? I'm in the West Block,
Canada.
yes.
The crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls remains a national tragedy, tearing families apart, communities grieving,
It sounds
and
like
families shattered.
more statements to the members. So we still have, well, I don't know how much time we have. Let's look at this Anit Anand post where they're bragging again, virtue signaling again. Canada continues to stand with the people of Haiti as they face immense political, security, and humanitarian challenges. Canada's dumped so much money to Haiti, yes. And it's always the liberals, right? When they've reached their peak stupidity in spending and printing money and increasing the budget, and you can list this in the past too. Like this happened under Paul Martin, this happened under Trudeau as well, under Jean Chrétien, not Trudeau, but when Jean Chrétien took over from him. That they would, well, when things are bad, let's give more money to the Haitians. I don't know. Does the Haitian community perhaps need a boost in Montreal? Is that why they're giving money to them? We don't know, but it's 60 million bucks. While Canadians are like starving. That you keep printing and spending money you don't have and increasing inflation, making everything more expensive. We see what you're doing, you clowns. You freaking clown. Enough of the clown world. And are we still doing statements?
Advance its political causes like it does right now. Canada's recognition of this Palestinian state will result in more deaths, 100%. They've recognized the terrorist state on Rosh Hashanah. Shame on you.
The honourable member for Vancouver Granville.
Mr. Speaker, this summer was truly an incredible season across the riding of Vancouver Granville. From local festivals such as the Dragon Boat races on our shore to the community days that were held across our riding, our neighbors came together in ways, so many ways, to showcase the vibrant.
A lot of people don't know how the dragon boat works. I actually did some dragon boating when I was over in Borden. When I was, excuse me, when I was teaching at the schoolhouse at Canadian Forces Base Borden at 16 Wing, Canadian Forces School of Aerospace Technology and Engineering. So, of course, if you're in a schoolhouse, you really have to work at everything else in your profile in order to get promoted, if you want to get promoted, because just doing your job at the schoolhouse is not going to get you promoted because that's just a very small piece. In fact, when you're teaching at the schoolhouse, you're not even able to claim the students as your subordinates. So there you are as a young leader teaching, but yet you have no subordinates to be basically graded on as a leader. So it's really detrimental to your career if you spend time at the schoolhouse, unless you have a plan to do about everything else under the sky to hit all those dots and bring up your score. And one of the things that I found out when I got there, at the time, I believe I was 42 years old. I got posted into the tactical, not tactical, the rotary cell. Tactical on the brain because it was TACL I was in. So the rotary cell teaching helicopters from theory of flight, basic stuff, and usually that cell was at the end of helicopters, and we would teach them that stuff. But everyone else in the cell had more years of experience than I did at that time. Like guys who've worked on a Sea King his entire career. We had a guy from UK who worked on gazelles. Is it gazelles? I'm thinking of the other one, the UK flew. I probably got that one wrong. Another fellow traveler who worked on Twin Hueys and Kiowas like myself, and was currently working on Griffins as a reservist, but working at the schoolhouse as a civilian. Some other people came through the shops over the years. Also, a lot of them working on the same airframes that I'd worked on in the past. So we all had a nice, tightly knit group of people, a lot of experience, and but there we were twiddling our thumbs because they, even though this was 10 years after they decided to amalgamate all the trades into 3 trades, we had 11 trades or 13 trades actually. Some of them started coming together, but when we went from 11 to 3. So now we had 5 trades in this new trade that we belonged in. And over the past 10 years, at that point, they had continually been retweaking and changing and updating and upgrading the AVN teaching package of the trade I was teaching in, to the point whereby the latest final all singing, all dancing, best of all AVN courses was finally underway. And once that course was done, that all the final tweaks that they did, they were finally going to start them afresh. But they had just started that course. So we were waiting like 11 months, I think. 11 months with nothing to do as we waited for the course to start. Now we were given the course to take care of like the course mother administrative stuff. But really, other than developing our training aids and our lesson plans and everything else that we could under the sun, we needed to find other stuff to do. So luckily for me, one of the members in myself, the former UK member who got his Canadian citizenship while we were in the cell, he he would do the dragon boat as part of the community stuff for charity every year, and we would take some personnel awaiting training downtown, and we would use them to help us set up some tentage that they would use over the weekend for the dragon boat festival. And then, of course, the base would also put in a team or 2, depending on how many people would volunteer. And as part of the volunteer, you actually pay to volunteer because you're actually raising money for charity. Of course, you can always get other people to, give you donations, so you can raise the donations because the whole thing about the Dragon Boat Festival is to raise money for charity and at the same time have some fun. And of course, there are professional dragon boat teams that go from tournament to tournament, and these people are so synchronized they can actually lift that boat right out of the water. all of them stroking at the same time. And it's not like stroking a canoe with your paddle. It's completely different. It's a different stroke altogether. There's no J, there's no moving around. It's just straight down and back and up, and that's it. You don't want to hit the person that's really close to you behind you. So that was quite the adventure. But it takes just the slightest bit of wind to get some choppiness to cancel your whole event. So you really need a well-protected lagoon if you're going to be doing this. Are we starting?
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Yay! We're starting.
Pendant 5 ans, les libéraux ont augmenté le taux de criminalité avec armes à feu de 136%. Leur politique de gaspiller l'argent en harcelant les chasseurs et les fermiers et en enlevant l'argent des forces frontalières et policières a causé cette vague de criminalité. Le ministre de la Sécurité publique a avoué que ça ne fonctionne pas, mais c'est fait strictement pour les raisons électoralistes. Mr. Speaker, the public safety minister has admitted that going after farmers and hunters rifles is not going to fight crime. So the only reason to do this is politics. If he was telling the truth, then why not reverse? If not, why isn't he fired?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the gun registry, what the government is doing with the gun registry is putting in place a much more efficient way, an efficient way for Canadians to voluntarily return prohibited firearms, for fair compensation. This government is going to do it right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Fair compensation is a lie.
Minister of Public Safety says this government is doing it wrong. He was caught on tape saying the program won't work, and yet they are going to rip 750 duck hunters and farmers by banning the firearms they use. This approach has led to a 130% increase in gun crime under the Liberals' watch. The police say they won't implement it. The minister says it's a bad idea, but they're only doing it for political reasons. Why is the Prime Minister putting lives at risk for politics?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't even know where to begin with that. That's right. First off,
What lie shall you tell first? Right? You can't keep track of your lies. Is that why you don't know where to begin?
intervention. The person who's putting lives at risk is the Leader of the Opposition who's voted against every single piece of gun legislation. What the Minister of Public Safety is doing it right. He's correcting an inefficient system to provide Canadians with fair...
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I have voted against the Liberal policy of reducing criminal sentences for those who use guns to commit extortion, to commit robbery, and to commit other serious offenses, while voting in favor of locking up criminals who use guns in the commission of crime. The police say that 90% of crime is done with guns that come illegally over the broken Liberal border. The Liberal Public Safety Minister admits that the Prime Minister is only playing politics. Will the Prime Minister stop the politics, fire the Minister, and leave Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle alone?
Nope, they'll just come back and call the Conservatives dangerous because they won't support their gun grab.
Mr. Speaker, I will have too little time to address all the issues, but let me go back to something the Leader of the Opposition said, which he described farmers, duck hunters using AR-15s to hunt. I don't see that. I don't see that in my great province of Alberta. I also know that what the Minister of Public Safety and this government are doing is tightening the border. Bill C-2, will the opposition stand up and support
They've done nothing,
nothing
since January. Since the President of the United States told them you need to secure your border, they've done nothing.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
And they're the Prime Minister just admitted that he doesn't even know what his gun ban applies to. That's right. For example, this gun ban applies to 10 and 12 gauge shotguns, which are used by the great people of Alberta and all Canadians for duck hunting. It applies to 70 22 caliber firearms that are used by almost every farmer to go after gophers. Will the Prime Minister stop wasting money banning gopher guns, read his briefing notes so that he knows what he's talking about, and fire that incompetent minister?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what this government is doing is providing fair compensation for Canadians to return illegal firearms, illegal assault rifles, and what this government is doing is proposing the biggest tightening of our border in our nation's history.
Again with the proposals. Yeah, we're proposing. You propose a lot of things, but you never get anything done, other than grabbing people's property.
Absolutely no idea what guns he's banning, Mr. Speaker. He's banning 22s. These are known as farmers' guns to go after gophers and other pests. One of them is even called the plinkster, because that's the sound it makes when it bounces off a pop can. The Prime Minister is wasting precious border and police resources, harassing farmers, banning duck hunters, when real gun crime rages in our streets. Once again, will he pick up a briefing note so that he knows what he's talking about and go after the real criminals?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has his briefing notes. Decides his list, what are real guns and what are assault rifles, what should be kept off the streets. That is the process, Mr. Speaker.
Your politicized police force, your personal Gestapo, are not to be trusted, PM.
The Prime Minister's knowledge bank on this subject is now depleted, so we'll move on to something else. The subject of food prices. Prime Minister said that he would be judged on the prices at the grocery store. Well, the verdict is in. Food prices are rising 50% faster in Canada than in the U.S., almost double the Bank of Canada's target. The Daily Bread says there will be 4 million visitors to Toronto food banks, a doubling over 2 years ago. And yet the Prime Minister has 3 grocery taxes in place and going up while people line up at food banks. Will he stop taxing food so Canadians can afford to eat?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me bring the Leader of the Opposition up to speed on taxes. This government cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. This government cut taxes on first-time home buyers. This government cut the carbon tax.
No, that's a lie. You didn't cut it. You paused it. And those other taxes have done nothing.
L'honorable député de Belleuil-Chambly.
Monsieur le Président, le Premier ministre a bien sûr lu le mémoire déposé au nom de son gouvernement à la Cour suprême pour s'en prendre à la laïcité telle que vue au Québec et à la clause dérogatoire. Il l'a bien sûr approuvé et ce mémoire a bien sûr été ultimement signé par son procureur général. Lui qui a sollicité l'appui solennel des Québécois, lui qui a cru en leur jugement, pensez que le Québec va recourir à la clause dérogatoire pour permettre des exécutions sommaires, enlever le droit de vote aux femmes ou rétablir l'esclavage.
Bravo. Bravo. Le très honorable Premier ministre.
Monsieur le Président, ceux qui protègent les Canadiens et les Canadiennes, les Québécois et les Québécoises, les hommes, des femmes, les jeunes, les aînés, c'est la charte des droits et la liberté. Et c'est la responsabilité du gouvernement du Canada de défendre cette charte.
That's not an answer. C'est pas une c'est pas une réponse. C'est pas ça qui est questionné.
tous les Québécois voient tous les libéraux se lever pour les insulter collectivement. Je veux que le premier ministre m'explique pourquoi, dans son mémoire, il a cru nécessaire de mentionner un possible rétablissement du travail forcé, de l'esclavage, que ses députés parlent ouvertement de racisme. Je veux qu'il m'explique pourquoi il croit que les Québécois, qui sont la société la plus progressiste, ouverte en Amérique, vont vouloir rétablir la peine de mort et l'exécution sommaire. Pourquoi permet-il de pareilles insultes?
Call them out. Call those buggers out.
Monsieur le Président, c'est simple. Il y a une charte. Non. Il y a une charte des libertés et droits des Canadiennes et Canadiens, des Québécois et des Québécois.
Yeah, but you violated that charter.
Le gouvernement du Canada.
And you want to violate it by changing the notwithstanding clause.
L'honorable député de Belleuil-Chambly.
People are so
Monsieur le
evil.
Président, il y a une constitution qui nous a été imposée et qui contient la clause dérogatoire à laquelle nous avons le droit de recourir et à laquelle le gouvernement s'oppose en déclinant des injures grossières à l'endroit non seulement du Québec, mais aussi d'autres provinces canadiennes. Est-ce que le premier ministre va faire la seule affaire décente, retirer ce mémoire et s'excuser aux Québécois?
Le très honorable Premier ministre.
He didn't even say sorry for killing people with the vaccine.
Monsieur
He's
le
not going to say
Président,
sorry for that.
Le gouvernement ne recule pas. Nous défendons la Charte des libertés et des droits des Canadiens et Canadiennes. Alors, en ce qui concerne l'utilisation de clauses non-obstant, ce sera une décision pour la Cour suprême.
The honourable member for Dufferin Caledon.
Slime.
Exact opposite thing in private, because that's exactly what this public safety minister did. He called the Liberal $750 million gun buyback a politically motivated scam. His number one job is to keep Canadians safe. Violent crime is up, gun crime is up, and 90% of gun crimes, police say, come from illegal guns. His main plan he calls a scam. This is stunning incompetence. Why hasn't he been fired?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I was proud to launch the assault-style firearm compensation program in Nova Scotia. We look forward to expanding it across Canada. This is part of a broader plan to ensure that our guns are off our street. It includes changes to the criminal code. It includes resources at the border, $1.3 billion investments at the border. And Mr. Speaker, Bill C-2 is right in the House today. I invite the party opposite to support us so that we can get that through Parliament.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin Caledon.
Except in a private conversation, this minister said the exact opposite thing. He called the Liberal gun buyback a politically motivated scam. Now, imagine what could be done with this $750 million. How many police officers could be hired? How many border officers could be hired? How many scanners could be purchased to find the illegal guns coming in from the United States? And yet, he's doing nothing. He's pushing forward with his politically motivated scam. Canadians deserve better. They deserve to be safe. This is staggering incompetence. Why won't the Prime Minister fire him?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, staggering incompetence is when you think that AR-15s can be used for hunting and for farming, Mr. Speaker. We brought forward a very important plan in Nova Scotia. We look forward to expanding it across Canada, Mr. Speaker. We look forward to doing that in the near future. We're going to be investing in 1,000 new RCMP as well as 1,000 new CBSA officers, Mr. Speaker. We will ensure that our borders are safe and guns are off our streets.
Recruit. People are not joining the RCMP. How are you going to pay for 1,000 more?
Nationals with criminal convictions are roaming around Canadian cities. More than half are on the CBSA's wanted list.
and their whereabouts are unknown. Over 70% of these non-citizen criminals have been convicted of serious crimes, including sexual assault. The Public Safety Minister has one job, and that's to keep Canadians safe. On this and many other issues, he is failing miserably. And it's really hard to believe that the Prime Minister just yesterday said he has confidence in the minister. Why won't he fire this minister? Because not doing so calls into question the Prime Minister's judgment.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, this year the Canada Border Service Agency has removed over 20,000 people, Mr. Speaker. This is one of the largest removals in Canadian history. CBSA will continue to do his job, Mr. Speaker. We will ensure that we're hiring another 1,000 new CBSA officers to strengthen the border and to ensure enforcement, and we will continue to make sure that our borders are safe. We will, at the same time, ensure that guns are off our streets, Mr. Speaker.
I'm sure the largest removal has nothing to do with the largest influx in Canadian history of illegal migrants.
600 serious criminals who are non-citizens who should be deported but are roaming the streets of Canadian cities. The minister had the entire summer to come up with a plan to find these convicted non-citizen criminals who've been convicted of crimes like sexual assault. He lost them, and he can't find them. My question through you to the Prime Minister: if this level of incompetence happened at Brookfield, would he still have the confidence in that person, or would he fire them?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, this year the Canada Border Service Agency will be removing 20,000 people who are not eligible to be here, Mr. Speaker. This is one of
My
the
answer to my
highest
incompetence is the
history.
people I
We will
promised we're
continue
going to be
strengthen the border.
removing.
We will continue to remove those who are not eligible to be here, Mr. Speaker. We will also be investing in 1,000 new CBSA officers, along with 1,000 new RCMP officers to make our borders stronger.
Nothing but non-answers, promises, and lies.
Mr. Speaker, the #1 job of the Public Safety Minister is to keep Canadians safe. The Liberals promised to hire 1,000 border officers, and yet their own documents reveal they have not hired any, and have no plans to do so either. This will result in more guns and fentanyl being smuggled across borders like Windsor and Sarnia. Prime Minister still have confidence in this minister. Why won't he
So
fire him?
you're going to notice that the Prime Minister is not answering because the Prime Minister has left again.
Mr. Speaker, this new government has made historic investments in our border, and that goes for CBSA as well, Mr. Speaker. We are in the process of starting to hire 1,000 new personnel for the CBSA and 1,000 new personnel for the RCMP. We're going to do the work necessary so that guns do not get into Canada. These are investments that are necessary, while the Conservatives, all they did was make cuts. Cuts to CBSA, cuts to the RCMP, cuts to law enforcement that needed them the most. We're going to invest in these programs to make sure that we can fight crime in Canada.
L'honorable député de Louis Saint-Laurent à Tiawana.
They're not going to do any of those things.
Après 10 ans de gouvernance libérale, la criminalité au Canada augmente. Les crimes violents, plus de 55%. Les crimes avec armes à feu, plus de 130%. L'extorsion, plus de 330%. C'est ça le bilan libéral après 10 ans. Et voilà que le ministre responsable de la sécurité publique reconnaît que le programme de rachat des armes à feu ne fonctionne pas. Ça a échoué, on gaspille de l'argent et ça n'aide pas à augmenter la sécurité. Pourquoi le premier ministre maintient en poste quelqu'un de la sécurité publique qui ne croit pas du tout à ce programme très important?
L'honorable ministre de la Justice.
Mr. Speaker, it's difficult to accept criticism of the Conservative when it comes to issues of crime, given their complete lackadaisical approach when it comes to protecting Canadians against gun violence. When you look at their record when they were last in government, they eroded investments at the border that makes it easier to have guns illegally smuggled into this country. At every opportunity, they have voted against measures that take assault-style weapons off our streets. Mr. Speaker, we have put measures in place that ban the kinds of weapons that have used to kill RCMP officers in Moncton, that have killed people in the Ecole Polytechnique shooting, and that will potentially kill people going forward. We need to take gun crime seriously. I wish that...
Potentially. Moving forward, we promise to do this, we promise to do that.
Utiliser sa parole pour essayer de convaincre le ministre de la Sécurité publique parce que lui, il ne pense pas du tout que le programme de rachat des armes à feu fonctionne. Au contraire, c'est 750 millions de dollars qui n'est pas agi de façon correcte. C'est le ministre lui-même qui l'affirme. et le Premier ministre maintient le ministre de la Sécurité en place. Monsieur le Président, comment le Premier ministre peut tolérer un type qui pense exactement le contraire de ce qu'il dit publiquement, alors qu'en privé, il reconnaît que le programme ne fonctionne pas?
They're going to be hammered constantly on this.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, j'ai survécu au féminicide de Polytechnique
Her
où
again.
14 femmes ont vécu la vie. En 1990, la plus importante pétition manuscrite déposée ici, à la Chambre des communes, a été déposée. Et ce qu'elle demandait, c'est le retrait des armes de style d'assaut de nos rues. C'était en 1990. Encore aujourd'hui, plus de 70 des Canadiens, même des Canadiens en région rurale, le souhaitent. Donc, il n'est
No.
pas question d'harceler les chasseurs
No, that's
ou les
a lie.
fermiers. Il est question d'armes destinées à tuer. On l'a promis. On va le faire. Ça va être fait. Merci.
Regardless of how it goes against common sense to confiscate secured legal gun owners from law-abiding citizens, we're going to do it anyway.
Monsieur le Président, on dit que quand les États-Unis éternuent, le Canada attrape la grippe. C'est sûrement pourquoi, au moment où Donald Trump délire aux Nations unies sur les changements climatiques, le Canada vire climato-sceptique lui aussi avec la loi C5. 250 élus municipaux se sont coalisés pour demander au premier ministre de bâtir le pays plutôt que de le brûler. Ils exigent que les grands projets du gouvernement favorisent le transport en commun, les logements éco-énergétiques, j'en passe. Pas le pétrole et le gaz. Le gouvernement va-t-il écouter les maires et mairesses ou Donald Trump?
L'honorable ministre de l'Environnement et du Changement climatique.
Monsieur le Président, je pense que s'il a écouté hier et les journées d'avant, il aurait aussi entendu notre Premier ministre à l'ONU qui parlait du changement climatique et comment le Canada va être et continuer à être un leader à lutter contre le changement climatique. On fait le bon travail. J'espère bien qu'il va nous aider.
Yeah, Donald Trump meant
95 municipalités ont respiré de l'air de qualité dangereuse. 54 ont connu des feux de forêt. 37 des évacuations. 29 des chaleurs extrêmes. Je cite la mairesse de Montréal, il faut développer l'économie en s'éloignant au maximum du développement des énergies fossiles. Au lieu de favoriser les hydrocarbures, les libéraux comprennent-ils qu'il faut sortir du pétrole et du gaz?
this guy's a climate nut. He wants to kill the petrol system. It's like the liberals are.
Président, ça me semble comme le membre de l'autre côté du bloc n'a pas écouté le bon discours. Parce que s'il écoutait notre premier ministre, il aurait entendu qu'on prend au sérieux de lutter contre le changement climatique. On va continuer à faire le bon travail. C'est important quand on va bâtir.
Yeah, they're going to continue to waste money on their climate scam so that they can continue to fill the pockets of their friends and their businesses on the side.
After 10 years of Liberal mismanagement, Canadians can't afford to put food on the table. In August, food inflation outpaced overall inflation by 84%, and food prices have gone up another 3.5%. But it was this Prime Minister who told Canadians he would be judged by the cost of food. Well, it's now Canadians who are paying the price for 10 years of Liberal photo ops, higher inflation, and breaking Canadian promises. Was this the Canadian dream that the Prime Minister promised? A country where Canadians can't feed their families?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, do you know what the best predictor of future behavior is? Past behavior. That's right. And Canadians have watched.
Yes, and 10 years of Liberal mismanagement will only breed more mismanagement. 10 years of increased deficit has increased our $100 billion deficit.
Mr. Speaker, they might not applaud so loudly after I read through the list of things that these folks have voted against year after year.
We know what we voted against.
Food programs, childcare, tax cuts, support for training, support for union investments, Canada summer jobs, Mr. Speaker. Canadians wanted a government
Summer
that
jobs?
believes in them, that
For temporary
invests in them,
foreign
and
workers,
they
you mean,
have
right?
that with this government.
The Honourable Member for Foothill.
Well, let's look at the past record. Justin Trudeau promised to Canadians that he would lower food prices by Thanksgiving of 2023. Never happened. This Prime Minister told Canadians that he should be judged by the cost of food at the grocery store. Well, judgment has been rendered. Beef is up 33%, grapes up 22%, coffee 24%. And now
it's much more than that. A can of coffee in 2015 was $6. It's $24 now.
How many people and how many families are going to be forced to the food bank before this Prime Minister admits Canadians he broke his promise?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Chickens tripled in price.
Silver lining, Mr. Speaker, is that I see some promise in perhaps that member supporting the budget that will be tabled very shortly this fall, where we will propose ambitious investments in Canadians, in Canadian families, in Canadian workplaces, in Canadian unions, in major projects, in our national defense system. Mr. Speaker,
the government that has put off a budget for 9 months is
seen the light, and they should stop voting against Canadian interests.
Is bragging about putting out their budget.
Mr. Speaker, while the Prime Minister jets around the world shaking hands with dictators and diplomats, Canadians are lining up in food banks in record numbers. He says he wants to be judged by the price of food in grocery stores, but he's too busy seeking approval at the UN to notice how much worse food insecurity is now for Canadians. Food prices have risen 50% faster in Canada than in the United States since March. How many more families must go hungry before he admits he's failed?
Let's see, you're going to talk about tax cuts, giving free lunches.
He's been missing in action this summer, Mr. Speaker, because this summer, 22 million Canadians got a tax cut, Mr. Speaker. He should be standing there and celebrating, but instead, Mr. Speaker, he fought against childcare. He fought against the Canadian dental care program. He voted against the food program, Mr. Speaker. At every step of the way, the Conservative fought against it.
No, they fought against communist spending for Canadians, you fool.
From what we see, this Liberal government cares more about international headlines than bread lines that Canadians are stuck in. They're saying, what about us, as food insecurity reaches a crisis point across the country? In my area, Simcoe County, a third of households can't afford to properly feed their families. Millions of Canadians are chasing their next meal. So why is the Prime Minister so focused on chasing applause from world leaders than the crisis right here at home?
This
Mr.
fool.
Speaker, there might be a new election, but the same old Conservative, Mr. Speaker. Same old Conservative. Slogans won't feed
Listen to this guy.
Mr. Speaker. Slogans won't do that, Mr. Speaker. But you know what's going to help family, Mr. Speaker? Is taking action like cutting tax for 22 million Canadians. Instead of fighting against childcare, instead of fighting against pharma care, instead of fighting against dental care, let them see if they're going to vote for this budget that's going to be generational to build this country, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Beauce.
Monsieur le Président, après 10 ans de gouvernement libéral et de dépenses incontrôlées, le coût de la vie explose. Nos aînés sautent maintenant un repas par jour pour payer leur loyer. Le premier ministre a brisé sa promesse. Il dépense plus et il livre moins. Chaque mois, Moisson Beauce, un organisme de banque alimentaire, reçoit 6 000 demandes. Et malheureusement, 37% sont des enfants, Monsieur le Président. Ça fait aucun sens. Monsieur le Président, ce premier ministre va-t-il arrêter d'attaquer les familles canadiennes et s'occuper des vrais problèmes qu'ils ont créés eux-mêmes?
L'honorable ministre de l'Industrie.
Monsieur le Président, ici dans cette Chambre, nous sommes tous réunis pour améliorer la condition des Canadiens. Et le but est certainement de pouvoir travailler ensemble pour justement répondre à leurs besoins. Et j'aimerais souligner à mon collègue que la semaine passée, la Banque du Canada a réduit son taux directeur, qui a fait en sorte justement que plusieurs personnes au Canada, que ce soit des gens qui possèdent une maison ou encore des gens qui possèdent une entreprise, finalement vont pouvoir avoir de l'aide pour justement arriver et joindre les deux bouts à la fin de l'année. Mais ce que je peux vous dire aussi, c'est que nous avons réduit les impôts sur la classe moyenne et également sur les acheteurs d'une première maison.
The honourable member for Richmond East.
Great,
Houston.
but nobody can afford to buy a house, though.
Mr. Speaker, during the parliamentary recess weeks, I, along with my Pacific colleagues, worked actively on the mandate set out by our Right Honourable Prime Minister to engage with industry and all sectors to identify Canadians who want to collaborate, invest, and join us in building Canada. Can the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources please elaborate on how British Columbia is contributing to this nation-building effort and how our economic strategy ensures the needs of everyday citizens, like affordability, job creation, and regional equity, and being met through partnerships and investments?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for his question. Canada is undertaking a wartime-like effort to retool our economy and advance projects of national interest, including projects in British Columbia like the LNG Canada Phase 2 and the Red Chris mine, which will generate significant benefits for First Nations communities. I'd also like to let the member know that under the One Project, One Review, we are advancing projects like the new Silissum LNG export facility, led by the Nisga'a Nation, which will also have a pipeline associated with that project.
The honourable member for Middlesex, London.
Speaker, the Prime Minister said that Canadians would judge him by the costs at the grocery store. Well, the Liberal record holds that food bank use is up 142% since 2015, and the Daily Bread Food Bank expects 4 million visits in 2025. Families are cutting meals while costs are climbing and wages stall. He promised he would bring relief, but he didn't bring home the bacon, an item that's up over 20%. So will the Prime Minister stop the bait and switch and cut costs so Canadian families can afford to eat?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Speaker, seniors who built this country should never have to choose between paying for groceries or heating their cutting red tape. We're building homes faster. We've introduced dental care, and more than 2 million seniors are already signed up to get benefits. We're building an economy that works for everyone. Let's be clear, Conservatives have a record
your spending is not going to help the economy.
Pushing the retirement age higher, cutting benefits, and leaving seniors behind. While they're voting against seniors, we are empowering older Canadians and protecting
instead of mentioning Harper, they're talking about 10 years ago before they ruined the economy.
Member for Middlesex, London.
About as empty as Canadians' grocery carts. In Middlesex County, 1 in 4 families are food insecure. It means they have no idea where their next meal is going to come from. And food banks, they can't keep their shelves stocked. At the checkout, grapes are up 22%, canned soup up 26%, coffee up 22%, and sugar up 20%. The Prime Minister's policies have clearly failed. So will he back measures that actually cut costs, or will he keep feeding inflation while Canadians starve?
The Honourable Secretary of State for...
The answer is going to be, we're going to keep feeding inflation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the question. Mr. Speaker, families clearly need support to tackle food insecurity. That is why we're ensuring that more children are getting nutritious meals at school, while saving parents hundreds of dollars with the National School Food Program.
No.
We're putting more money in
Who the fuck is paying for this?
Every month.
We all have to pay for this. You're not saving any money.
On the opposite side of the House, voted against.
Liberals think money is free from a money tree.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said Canadians should judge him by prices at the grocery store. Well, since he got elected, Canada's food prices have surged 50% faster than in the U.S. After 10 years of Liberal rule, we have record lineups at food banks. Families can't afford to put food on their table. They're struggling. The Prime Minister promised he'd be different, but it's just another bait and switch. So when will the Prime Minister cut food taxes, stop his plan to double the deficit in order to bring grocery prices down?
Liberals will not be happy until people are starving to death in Canada.
Mr. Speaker, Nutrition North is showing real progress with results that are reaching more Northerners every year. In its first year, more than 15,000 harvesters were supported with hundreds of hunts and over 700 food sharing initiatives from Nain, Nunatsiavut to Old Crow, Yukon, showing the program's reach across the north. In Nunavut, the price of flour in Rankin Inlet has dropped by more than 65%, and in Aluklik, A dozen eggs that was once nearly $10 are now just $5. And today, 124 communities across the north are being directly supported through Indigenous government.
The honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of Liberal mismanagement, food bank usage in Canada is up 142%. In Calgary, demand for emergency hampers rose another 17% this past year. The Prime Minister said Canadians would judge him by the cost at the grocery store. Well, they are. They're lining up at food banks. This isn't about inflation. It's about a government that's lost control of affordability, employment, and in the end, human dignity. When will the Prime Minister stop grading himself on promises and start delivering real, tangible results for Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You know, Food Banks Canada does essential work on the front lines, but they also make recommendations for politicians like us for better policies to support Canadians. So I'd put it back on that member. When we had a vote in this House of Commons just not that long ago on a national school food program, he voted against it. Every time we have a policy to support Canadians like $10 a day childcare or dental care, they vote against it.
Yeah,
when we
of
bring
course.
forward measures to ensure that there's more affordable housing
Because
for Canadians,
you don't
they
think
vote
it
against
through.
it. So if you're going to quote the Food Banks Canada report, please read the report and consider some of their recommendations.
How about a recommendation on not destroying the economy, and then people could afford their own food?
Mr. Speaker, the Calgary Herald reports record demand at the Calgary Food Bank as food prices at the grocery store continue to rise faster than inflation and as unemployment approaches 8% in Calgary. The Prime Minister said he'd be judged by the cost at the grocery store, and the verdict is a scathing indictment of this Prime Minister's performance. When will the Prime Minister stop running out-of-control deficits that are driving inflation, unemployment, and demand at the food bank?
It's only going to get worse.
State for financial institutions.
Mr. Speaker, in the last election, Canadians had versus
You don't get to
leader
question
opposite
us
that has
because we
no
won the
economic
election.
experience whatsoever. We are laser focused on building a strong economy. We're cutting taxes for 22 million Canadians. We're cutting the GST for first-time homebuyers. Interest rates has just dropped. And we are going to build houses at a scale not seen since the Second World War. Mr. Speaker, it's time for the Conservatives.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of this Liberal government, Canadians can't afford groceries. Back home, the River Valley Food Bank in Woodstock reports serving twice as many people this time of year compared to last. These increases span every age group, especially seniors. These are our neighbors. They're not just statistics. They're our family members and they're our friends. Can the Prime Minister tell this House how on one hand he plans on tackling inflation and bringing down grocery costs, while on the other hand he's doubling the nation's deficit? How's that even possible?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, every member of this House of Commons cares deeply about the cost of living for Canadians. But there's one difference, Mr. Speaker. There's one difference. On this side, we're bringing forward initiatives and opportunities for real Canadians by building this country, Mr. Speaker. We're going to build big, we're going to build bold, and we're going to build now, Mr. Speaker, with working Canadians. We're going to create hundreds of thousands of jobs, more opportunities for apprenticeship. Mr. Speaker, Conservative voters want this. I hope the opposition gets on board.
No, Conservative voters never wanted you in the first place.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised Canadians he'd be judged at the cost of the grocery stores. Yet, in August, food inflation soared 70% higher than the overall inflation. Denise, a senior in Quebec, is now forced to skip meals to survive the crushing cost of living. This is another broken promise from a Prime Minister who has let our seniors down time and time again.
Shame.
Will this Prime Minister stop doubling the deficit in order to bring down inflation so seniors don't have to skip their meals?
That's right.
All right, you soulless ghouls. How are you going to respond to that?
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Excellent.
I just wanted to point out, Mr. Speaker, I've been hearing the Conservatives complain about food prices, Mr. Speaker, but not one solution, Mr. Speaker. Not one idea.
Oh, there's been solutions. You just don't listen.
Support for some of the measures we've taken on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker.
Blah, 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 blah. Not answering the question.
Words, Mr. Speaker, and my message to the leader of the opposition and the Conservative caucus: slogans don't put food on the table, Mr. Speaker.
Well, apparently, neither does your financial schemes.
Monsieur le Président, personne ne devrait se priver pour manger. Pourtant, les médias rapportaient cette semaine l'histoire d'aînés qui doivent sauter des repas pour arriver à la fin du mois. C'est malheureusement la réalité de plus en plus de ménages canadiens assommés par une inflation alimentaire 2 fois plus élevée que l'inflation générale après 10 ans de règne libéral. Monsieur le Président, les banques alimentaires ne répondent plus à la demande et le dernier poste budgétaire compréhensible pour nos aînés est de sauter un repas chaque jour. Le premier ministre est-il conscient de la précarité financière de nos aînés?
Bonne question, bonne question.
Canada was a nice place in 2015. Now it's turned into an utter shithole.
Monsieur le Président, je vais vous dire, ce dont les Québécois sont très conscients, c'est que les conservateurs, à chaque jour, ici à Ottawa, à 2 heures, ils se trouvent une conscience. Mais quand vient le temps de voter pour des mesures qui viennent directement appuyer les aînés, les jeunes, les familles, là où leur conscience est nulle part. Ils ne la trouvent plus. Quand était le temps
Parce
de
que
voter pour l'allocation
n'avez pas une
canadienne pour enfants qui a
conscience
réduit la pauvreté
quand
infantile
ça
de 38%
vient à
au Canada, ils ont voté
dépenser
contre.
l'argent
Quand était le
d'autres
temps de
personnes.
voter pour une augmentation du supplément de revenus garanti pour les aînés les plus vulnérables, ils ont voté contre. Quand était le temps d'augmenter, de réduire l'âge de la retraite, ils ont voté contre.
Ouais, ils ont
C'est
voté
pas
contre, mais ça
surprenant que
passait
les Québécois
quand
aient
même.
rejeté le Parti
Puis à
conservateur,
cette heure,
choisi un gouvernement
le
sérieux
monde,
qui est
ils n'ont
capable de
pas...
faire croître l'économie pour protéger nos programmes sociaux.
Le député de Lévis-Lotbinière.
Monsieur le Président, nos aînés souffrent en silence de la précarité financière. Ils souffrent de la faim également. Et ils souffrent des loyers trop chers et des imprévus de la vie liés à la maladie. Le premier ministre ne peut même plus imaginer la situation du haut de sa tour d'ivoire. L'inflation gruge tout le vieux gagné. Monsieur le Président, quand le premier ministre libéral finira-t-il par agir? Le devoir d'un premier ministre, c'est d'avoir les 2 pieds sur terre. Maintenant, la lune de miel du premier...
L'honorable ministre de la... L'honorable ministre de la Transformation du gouvernement.
Ça nous avait manqué, Monsieur le Président, et je le remercie, c'est une bonne performance. Toutefois, je tiens à noter quand même que les effets toges conservateurs, comme l'a mentionné mon collègue, c'est pas ça qui met de la nourriture sur la table des Canadiens, c'est pas ça qui aide les aînés dans le besoin d'un bout à l'autre du pays. Et Monsieur le Président, maintenant que les Québécois et que les Canadiens ont rejeté l'approche conservatrice,
C'est vous qui avez
dans les
enlevé
programmes dont les Canadiens
la viande
ont besoin,
des tables
les conservateurs ont le
des
choix
Canadiens.
maintenant d'embarquer dans un plan ambitieux pour augmenter le pouvoir d'achat des Canadiens avec des baisses d'impôts, avec
Non, vous
des
avez
baisses d'impôts
baissé
pour la classe
le
moyenne
pouvoir
et de faire
d'achat.
croître le potentiel de l'économie canadienne. J'espère qu'ils vont embarquer avec notre plan ambitieux.
No, because more spending will just reduce their spending power. Morons.
Monsieur le Président, les jeunes Canadiens et Canadiennes sont confrontés à des difficultés sans précédent qui nuisent à leur santé mentale et à leur bien-être. Trop souvent, les services dont ils ont besoin sont fragmentés et difficiles à obtenir. Et ils n'ont pas été conçus pour eux précisément. La ministre de la Santé pourrait-elle nous indiquer ce que fait le gouvernement pour garantir que les jeunes Canadiens et Canadiennes reçoivent le soutien en santé mentale dont ils ont besoin?
All right. So, young people's mental health, what are they doing about it? His first question probably in Parliament.
Oui, l'honorable ministre de la Santé.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je remercie mon collègue pour sa question. Les jeunes représentent la force vive nécessaire pour bâtir un Canada fort. Répondre le plus adéquatement possible aux enjeux de santé mentale et d'addiction chez les jeunes, et particulièrement chez les jeunes hommes, est l'une de mes priorités. C'est pourquoi, suite aux résultats de recherche menés sur la question, notre gouvernement a investi dans la création de services intégrés pour les jeunes, aires ouvertes au Québec et à travers le pays. Nous avons 109 centres
Cause so
ouverts
much
à
mental
travers le
illness
pays,
across Canada
17
that they have to open up
centres dans sa
new
province de la
agencies to help
Colombie-Britannique.
people. The majority of people in Canada are suffering from moral injuries from the Liberal Party and this government violating their rights and destroying their country around them, and they've seen everything gone. It's causing them moral injury. They trusted the government and they took that trust away. That's a moral injury.
The housing market is a mess. Prices are still too high for buyers. Sellers can't sell and builders can't build. This Prime Minister promised change, but it's just another bait and switch. Housing starts have crashed. pre-construction sales in the GTA have plunged to levels not seen since the global financial crisis. Young people are still unable to afford a home in which to live. The Prime Minister's answer? More of the same. Another costly housing bureaucracy. When will this Prime Minister stop building bureaucracy and start building homes?
The Honourable Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I've got news for the member opposite. He's got to check his facts. Housing starts are up in August of 25. They are up 10% over August 2024. So Canadians are building.
That's right.
Canadians are building, the interest rate is dropping, and this government is committed to the most aggressive affordable housing program in our history. We will see housing built by the tens of thousands that is below market and accessible for all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Elmwood Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of this Liberal government, we are in a housing crisis. Builders can't build and young Canadians are priced out of the market. Now, housing starts are down 16%, and a new report shows that Canada is at risk of losing 100,000 housing-related trades jobs. That means construction workers and tradespeople, like me, will all lose their livelihoods while this government refuses to get shovels in the ground. Why is the Prime Minister building another costly housing bureaucracy in Ottawa while workers are out of a job?
The Honourable Minister for
Real-time lying right there.
Thank you, Mr.
Across
Speaker.
Canada,
Well,
the
again,
6-month trend for housing starts was up in 2025, but the monthly seasonal adjusted rate was down significantly. Regional trends varied, but with some provinces seeing growth, while major markets like Toronto, Vancouver experienced declines. So overall, it's a decline. As usual, the Liberals do Canadians. That's all they do is lie.
It was never embraced by the members opposite.
The Honourable Member for Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of Liberal housing chaos, buyers can't buy, sellers can't sell, and builders can't build. My community has an unemployment rate of over 11%. It's the highest in Canada. And now we have one of the highest markets in which to buy a home. A new report states that homeownership is only for the very wealthy in Windsor. When will the Prime Minister stop his empty promises? When will he stop building bureaucracy and start building homes?
The Honourable Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, again, I'll restate the facts that under previous Conservative government, housing was completely ignored for a decade. The reinvestment
That's because people could afford to build their own houses, you clown.
with a $13 billion investment in affordable housing for Canada.
That's not investments, that's you spending.
To focus on homelessness and supportive housing.
Homelessness you cause with your economic policies.
Access housing. We're going to build like never before.
The Honourable Member for Sault Ste. Marie Algoma.
Speaker, September 30th is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Can the Minister of Indigenous Services please update this House on what our new government is doing to advance the goals of reconciliation? Chief Midwich.
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, this marks the 10th year of the TRC's calls to action. This government has made historic decisions to respond. In this very government, we saw the appointment of the first Indigenous Minister of Indigenous Services, so they can be served by their very own. Also seeing Indigenous voices at the cabinet table, creating space for representation and decision-making. A Prime Minister who advanced the TRC's foundational request of inclusion and belonging for September 30th and every day after that.
The Honourable Member for Kamloops, Shuswap, Central Rockies.
Mr. Speaker, farmers love their animals and would do anything to protect them. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency is planning to cull 400 ostriches in BC because of an outbreak of avian flu. When it comes to animal safety, Canadians expect due diligence and transparency. Canadians are looking to this government to explain why the cull is necessary, but the Liberal government has not posted a public update in over a month. Canadians want to know, why did the Liberal ministers not work with the agriculture sector to resolve this issue?
Finally, in question period.
Le Ministre de la Santé.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker, I want to make sure that this member knows that I am working very closely with the Minister of Agriculture, and the case is now in front of the court, so I won't comment more. Thank you.
How convenient. It wasn't in front of the courts before we came to stream.
$4 billion investment in the for Indigenous, by Indigenous, urban, rural, and northern housing strategy. Yet 2 years later, the money still has not flowed. Shovel-ready projects are stalled while the housing crisis for Indigenous, Inuit, and Métis people continue to escalate. In creating Building Canada Homes, the Prime Minister is admitting that CMHC is ill-equipped to deliver the much-needed affordable homes that Canadians need. Will the Prime Minister let Indigenous services take over so that they can do what is necessary for Indigenous-led housing providers access the funds to build the homes that the community desperately need?
Who's going to pay for it?
Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your home is where...
Go ahead, please.
Where you should feel the safest. And many Indigenous people live in housing that is overcrowded, contaminated, and affordable. But this new Build Better Homes Canada is going to finance Indigenous housing providers to grow affordable housing in community while catalyzing capital for a revolutionary approach to home building in community at a space that we've never seen in the darkest decade of government, the Conservative era.
Yeah, but in the last 10 years, you still haven't provided clean drinking water anywhere.
I would like
up north.
I wish to draw the attention of 16th Prime Minister of Canada.
Looking good, Joe.
Also, the Honourable Siobhan Cody, Deputy Premier, Minister of Finance and President of the Treasury Board for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I would also draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the finalists of the 2025 Shaughnessy Cohen Prize for Political Writing. Please hold your applause until we have all been recognized. Raymond B. Clark, Stephen Marr, the Honourable Jane Philpott, Alasdair Roberts, Tanya Talaga. Okay. It being 3:14, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion of Mr. Fortin relating to the business of supply.
No points of order from the question period. Very good. That brings us almost to the end. Well, it's been quite a busy couple of days. We are so glad that we have seen some kind of resolution on the ostrich farm. And I'm also impressed that a question actually made it into question period regarding the ostriches. And of course, I'm not surprised about the answer, that the Liberals found some way to wiggle out of answering any part of it. I'm going to have to look to see if this is actually in front of the courts. We'll put a short little video together on that. Well, we will see you tomorrow. If you came by today and you stopped to see the stream, I really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing all the love by giving me a follow. If you're on Commie2, please give us a like and head on over to Rumble. It's a much more stable platform and there are no commercials. If you don't have a Rumble account, you just go through 2 commercials at the beginning and that's it. No more commercials for the rest of the show or the stream. That's how they work. Also, Rumble is a freedom platform. which means that when these far left totalitarian, authoritarian lefties decide to take away our freedom of speech, the last place that it will be snatched from will be this platform. As long as they don't get past our VPNs, I guess. All right, let's bring this to an end. And thank everyone for coming out. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. See if this works.